Hello guys, Sir Grandolot here. When Genshin Impact was released in 2020, we all began our journey in the wonderful world of artifact farming. While the damage formula for Genshin Impact isn't particularly complex, there are a lot of variables that can influence the damage output of a character, and keeping track of all of them and their overlapping durations can be quite difficult. While back then many meta character guides, content creators were suggesting to give a spear that boosts physical damage to Shanling, a larger portion of the player base started to focus on artifact substats as a value to evaluate how well built a character was. And that's when a true scourge of humanity was created, crit value. For anyone lucky enough not to know this, crit value is simply the sum of how many crit substats one of your artifacts got, with crit rate counting twice as much as crit damage. So an artifact with 8 crit rate and 20 crit damage would have 36 crit value and so on. This crit value evaluation system created a situation in which a generation of crit value slaves was raised, ignoring every other substat on their artifacts because disgusting stats like elemental mastery, attack percentage, energy recharge, they did not increase the crit value of their builds. Eventually, a new age of enlightenment bestowed its light upon us when people started to dig a bit deeper in Genshin Impact's damage formula and realized that depending on specific characters' scaling and team synergies, some stats that would improve the damage output of our characters even more than focusing exclusively on crit value. When the Genshin Impact Optimizer was developed, it allowed players to see this in a very practical way using their own characters and artifacts. I myself was surprised by the optimized result for some of my characters. The year is now 2023. MiHoYoverse has released Honkai Star Rail, and unfortunately we're going through the same physical damage Shanling meta phase. While in early Genshin Impact, a huge part of the problem were content creators rushing to make clickbait video guides that provided no value whatsoever, and evaluated a character's performance depending on the damage they dealt to a disabled Cryo or Pyro Whopper Flower. In Honkai Star Rail, we have some websites that I will not name that are trying to provide the same kind of information as the Genshin Optimizer, but they suck. They fucking suck. I'll now give you an example using one of my own characters. If you've been around my channel in the past, you may know I've invested energy almost exclusively on Zeely, with all my other characters getting her sloppy seconds. A Zeely like mine, who has her signature Lightcon and her Eidolon 2, doesn't need speed. Not a single substat roll. This is because using her skill twice allows her to reach the maximum speed for the bonus damage of her Lightcon. This means that every single speed substat roll will be better off being a flat attack roll. In addition to that, we now have Fushuan, who provides 12% crit rate with 100% uptime, meaning that an Eidolon 0 Zeely shouldn't build any crit rate past 88. But I do have her Eidolon 1, which adds a situational 15% crit rate. While it's not active against all enemies, I decided that I didn't want to completely waste her first Eidolon. So I reduced her crit rate a bit, down to 76%, which becomes a very solid 88 thanks to Fushuan, and it goes just above 100% crit rate against enemies below 80% of her hit points. All the other substats have been focused on crit damage and attack percentage, even though that led to some of my relics with higher crit value being used on other characters, because I'm not going to ever cap crit rate just to show off better looking relics. If I didn't know the game well and I relied on a lyric scoring website, I would be using relics that are subpar for my Zeely. On a website that many people are using on a daily basis to share their builds, crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, speed and break effect are all considered equally good substats for Zeely, regardless of your Lightcon or of your Eidolons. It can be extremely misleading, because many players may end up using relics that aren't ideal simply because they have a better score. Speed can be a very valuable stat, but if you cannot reach a specific breakpoint, then it's better to focus on other stats. At 120 and 134 speed, we reach a couple of significant breakpoints. But if you're at 132, you have several substat rolling speed that are completely wasted, as you're not gaining an extra action on the first cycle until you reach 134. It's actually 133 and change, but we always round up for convenience's sake. You'd be better off using relics with less speed and more rolls in other substats. And that's without even getting into the discussion of speed tuning for ideal turn order, as in some teams you really want a specific character order. For example, in Kafka teams, you don't want her to go first. You want Asta and or Tingyun to go first and buff Kafka. Then you would like someone like Sampo to act and apply a damage over time effect, or have a second Harmony character buffing Kafka. Then have Kafka trigger all the DOT effects while being fully buffed. If you relied on your relic score, you may end up having Kafka acting first and dealing doctored damage. If you just want to show off your relics that got the best random rolls, then go for it and try to get all those sweet triple S ratings or whatever. On the other hand, if you want to optimize the performance of your teams and characters, a bit of trial and error and an overall better understanding of the game mechanics is the way to go, at least until we get a proper Honkai Star Rail optimizer. Star Rail related Discord channels, MiHoYo on forums and Reddit are usually good places to ask for advice when it comes to building characters. For example, if you're struggling a bit to build Jinliu and you're looking for advice, going to Jinliu mains subreddit is going to let you have feedback from people who have probably been playing and testing her for an extended period of time and will be able to steer you in the right direction. Just don't be the kind of guy who would go on Reddit to ask, build A has an extra 4 crit value, build B has an extra 400 attack. Which one is better? You think I'm joking and I'm making this up? Oh, my sweet crit value child.